In this video, I will show you exactly how to pad our Bent Branderup products and our saddles in a way that fully supports your aids and allows you to sit comfortably. We will examine in detail the anatomical challenges and intricacies our own bodies can have, and how we can adjust them in the most optimal way and effectively with what connects us, such as the pad here, for better results. Hello and welcome to our YouTube channel from Bent Branderup Products. My name is Gerlinde Schnapperelle. I am a licensed Bent Branderup trainer and have been guiding horse enthusiasts in academic riding with their horses for many years. And I am also the contact person for all Bent Branderup products as well. And if you want to know more about our products, just subscribe to the channel so you won't miss anything. Only a rider who is free from any tension will be able to sit on a horse that is also free from tension. This is what Oliveira said in a book from 1906 and 70, and it actually hits the mark quite well, because what do we expect from our seat, our horse, and what is in between? Whether it's a training pad like the one I have here next to me, such as a saddle, or a saddle pad, for example, I wish to be able to sit relaxed in a comfortable manner. I want to be able to sit on my horse and effortlessly. I don't want to have to make an effort to sit perfectly, because the pad or the saddle should take on that task for me. And beyond that, I also want to be able to sit directly in balance so that I can truly follow my horse optimally without bumping into anything, without having pressure points. Because all of this is crucial for me to be able to develop optimal aids with the finest cues later on. Because if I'm always pinched somewhere, I always have to counteract it somewhere, and tension will not lead my horse to respond optimally to my aids and be able to communicate with me. Definitely. Yes, that sounds easy enough, but often we have narrow riders and broad chests or deep chests, and then it becomes quite difficult to sit relaxed without doing the splits. But first, let's take a look at what's actually going on with our pelvis. Each of us is uniquely shaped in a unique way with our pelvis and thighs and structure. This means that one saddle fits me well, but it might not work at all for the next rider, in fact. Why is that actually? On one hand, we have sit bones that we girls can actually indeed, in fact, roll forward and backward on. This means I can roll forward towards the pubic bone, and I can roll backward onto the rear part of my sit bones. This means we are very multifunctional and flexible. This naturally has an advantage. We can easily shift our center of gravity. But unfortunately, it also has the disadvantage that you can quickly end up not sitting where you intended to. For men, the ischial tuberosity is a bit sharper, allowing them to feel and sit more precisely. This means that we have, in fact, a certain range within which we can move. Then there's also the fact that we actually have our tailbone back here. Depending on its shape, if you sit too far back in the chair seat, it can really end up pressing into the horse's back. Just like when I go in the other direction and press my pubic bone forward into the horse. That's one thing. That means we are looking for a position where we can sit centered on our seat bones. But as you can see here, it's not that simple, because on the pony I'm sitting on, 2001, I would like to sit like this. This, of course, needs to be changed. Let's put that on our wish list. The second thing is the width of our sitting bones. It is totally variable. In men, they are sometimes 7 centimeters apart. In other men, the sitting bones are closer together, while we women have them further apart. And now it naturally gets quite complicated. It means that if I, for example, have with a width of 12.8, if I have someone who is much, much narrower and wants to try my pad, it becomes really difficult again, because they get completely pushed apart since their sitting bones are much, much narrower. And it is then very interesting to find out how wide one's own sitting bones actually are. And for that, take a small piece of corrugated cardboard, large enough to comfortably fit your sitting bones. Place the corrugated cardboard on a table or a chair and simply sit on it. Move around a little bit so that you can feel that you are sitting on the cardboard with your sitting bones. Then you carefully stand up and can measure how far apart your sitting bones actually are. The next challenge is specifically the thighs in relation to our pelvis. Of course, if a dog still leans against the rider below, it becomes a bit difficult. Let's just observe the left leg. 2001. The thigh is connected to our pelvis by the femoral neck bone. And depending on the anatomy, it can naturally be that the femoral neck bone has more of a 90-degree angle into the hip or is a bit steeper. This can vary greatly. Also where the thigh or where the socket is, it can sit further forward, it can sit further back, 2001, and that determines how my thighs fall down along the horse's rib cage. And as you can see very well here, not only do I have a slight chair seat, as seen from the side, but my thighs also rotate outward significantly, unless the dog naturally pushes my legs back together. This means that if I want to try to get more towards the center of my sitting bones, I need to go approximately here. That will be quite difficult. But you see, nothing changes with my thigh. It remains quite open. And if I want to provide assistance now, for example, a small rotation here in the thigh, it is very difficult because I can only exert force at this point. So if I want to turn my horse this way, I would, for example, besides the change in my pubic bone, in my pubic area, perhaps also making room for the thigh here. Nonsense, push in here and make space here. So to exaggerate a bit, maybe this change of direction is 2001. And you see, this is really hard for me. It takes quite a lot of effort. If I go back to sitting more in the chair seat, where I personally feel very comfortable now, it will become even more difficult. Same movement in the chair seat. Almost nothing happens. Now I move to the middle of my runners. It's a bit easier here. And now I tilt too far forward onto my pubic bone. 2001, and here it is blocked again. And that is also the reason why it is so important to be able to sit balanced and centered. For one person, it is a bit further forward, for another a little further back because of the thighs. But in principle, you can say, find a middle position where you can move your thighs particularly well. That means I want to be able to turn towards the horse with my front. I want to be able to turn away from the horse in 2001. But I also want to either frame my horse's rib cage a bit more with the back of my thigh, or turn away with the back of my thigh and give a bit more space. And you see, this is quite tricky. Now let's take a look at how we can improve this so that I can ride my pony a bit better. Now I have saddled my pony with the Bent Branderup training pad. As you can see, I can already sit much more centered on use end. I sit on my sit bones. I no longer tilt so far back, which I now find almost difficult again. And I can also tilt a bit forward. This means I still have a small range in which I can move. And my thighs are already significantly more flexible here than they were earlier. But of course, there's still a lot more to be done, because, for example, I now have the feeling that I'm being pushed up a bit at the back here. I would actually like to sit a bit higher on the horse so that my thighs can hang down more relaxed, like this, but without being tense. And the Bent Branderup training pad in felt, in leather, and all our saddles have one thing in common. We can pad this area up here so that it fits us, and we'll put that on our wish list. The second is the width of our sit bones. It is completely variable. In men, they are sometimes 7 centimeters apart, while in other men, the sit bones are closer together. We women have them further apart. And now it naturally becomes quite complicated. This means, for example, if I have someone with a width of 12.8 who is much, much narrower and wants to try my pad, it becomes very difficult because they will be completely pushed apart since their sit bones are much, much narrower. And it is very interesting to find out how wide they actually are for oneself. And for that, take a small piece of corrugated cardboard, large enough to comfortably fit your sit bones. Place the corrugated cardboard on a table or a chair and simply sit on it. Move around a little so that you can feel your sit bones on the cardboard. Then you carefully stand up and can measure how far apart your sit bones actually are. The next challenge is then actually indeed the thighs in relation to our pelvis. Of course, if a dog leans against the rider from below, it becomes a bit difficult. Let's just observe the left leg. The thigh is connected to our pelvis by the femoral neck bone, and depending on the anatomy, it can naturally have a more 90-degree angle into the hip or be a bit steeper. This can vary greatly. Also, where the thigh or the pelvis can sit further forward or further back, and this determines how my thighs fall down along the horse's rib cage. As you can see very well here, not only do I have a slight chair seat when viewed from the side, but my thighs also rotate outward significantly, unless the dog naturally pushes my legs back together. It means that if I want to try to sit more on the center of my sit bones, I need to aim approximately here. This is going to be quite difficult. But you see, nothing changes with my thigh. It remains quite open. And if I want to give an aid now, for example, a small rotation here in the thigh, it is really difficult because I can only influence it with force at this point. So if I want to turn my horse this way, I would, for example, besides the change in my pubic bone, in my pubic alignment, maybe also making space here from the thigh. Nonsense. Push in here and make space here. So it might be an exaggeration to call it a change of direction. And you see, it is really hard for me. It takes quite a lot of effort. If I go back into the chair seat, where I personally feel very comfortable, it becomes even more difficult. Same movement in the chair seat. Almost nothing happens. Now I move to the middle of my runners. Here it is already a bit easier. And now I tilt too far forward onto my pubic bone. And here it is blocked again. And that is also the reason why it is so important to be able to sit balanced and centered. For one person, it is a bit further forward. For another, a little further back because of the thighs. But in principle, you can say, find a center where you can move your thighs particularly well. That means I want to be able to turn towards the horse with the front side. I want to be able to turn away from the horse, but I also want to frame my horse's rib cage a bit more with the back of my thigh, or turn away with the back of my thigh and give a bit more space. And you see, this is quite tricky. Now let's take a look at how we can improve so that I can ride my pony a bit better. So now I have saddled my pony with the Bent Branderup training pad. As you can see, I can now sit much more centered on my saddle. I no longer tilt so far back, which I now find almost difficult again. And I can also tilt a bit forward. That means I still have a small range in which I can move. And my thighs are already much more flexible here than they were earlier, definitely. But there is still a lot more to be done because, for example, I now have the feeling that I am being pushed up a bit at the back. I would actually like to sit a bit more over the horse so that my thighs hang down more relaxed, like this, but not relaxed. And there The Bent Branderup training pad in felt, in leather, and all our saddles have one thing in common. We can pad this area up here so that it suits us, and you can do it yourself. And now I'll show you how to do it. The training pads and the training saddle have a Velcro fastener here at the back, which can be easily opened. 2001. And then we have here a huge pocket that goes all the way to the front. I can now pad this large pocket with the supplied wool. Now, that means, as you can see here, you can pad it up here, you can pad it down here. There are many possibilities here. For myself, I have now said that I wish to sit a little higher in the middle and get a bit more support at the back. That means I will now calmly try to add some padding here, and then we will take a look at it together. How you stuff the wool is entirely up to you. We have a synthetic material here, U-sand, simply because it doesn't flatten as quickly. When we use natural wool, it often compresses quickly. And the good feeling we had after padding, when we had found the right filling, can quickly disappear again. Therefore, we have this wool, and now I will calmly push it in here and feel how far I have pushed it in. And in the front part, I will now try to place it a bit in the middle. You can go ahead and take a whole lot. They always say more is better. It is very important to feel from above whether it already feels even, and if there are any bumps. The horse won't be much bothered by the bumps. It won't notice them because it has its own padding down here. But for us up here, that might get a bit uncomfortable. Okay, now let's see what this filling has done and check if it was the right filling. When I am finished, I simply pull the tab back in and hide the Velcro fastener easily. And then the test ride can begin. So, now I have saddled up again. And you see that I can now sit much more centered. As you can see, I am now sitting pretty much exactly in the middle with my seat bones, and it doesn't strain me at all anymore. And that is the crucial point. And when we think of the initial quote, being able to sit relaxed, I can do that here now. I am trying to sink into myself right now, and that is the only thing that is still possible here. I can still tilt forward on my seat bones, so I can move a bit more forward. And I can still shift my center of gravity backward on the seat bones. This means I still have the ability to move in all directions. But the pad now supports me so that I can sit in my own center as best as possible. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. Now I have the pad positioned more where my thighs rest. And some of you might have slightly wider thighs when you are on the horse. And then sometimes the area at the front here, either if the thighs are narrower, is a bit too thin, or you feel like you would like a bit more space here. And you can easily adjust that yourself. You can lift the saddle flap here once, and then you will see slots for the wool. And then, if you know, at this spot, there is a bit too much for me. A pressure point could develop for me personally. You can simply reach in from the top and either push the padding a bit away. Now it is much flatter here, as you can see, and check if that is enough. Of course, you can always take a little bit of the wool out again. That means seat bones middle check. What about the movement of my thighs and my aids now? To do this, we turn our pony around again and check if it is standing properly. Wonderful. I have definitely found my center again. It really feels good. I can relax. And now you see that my thighs are not turned away as far as they were before. And now I can simply rotate my thighs at a much greater angle here, left and right, without effort. That means I now have a much larger range of movements that I can make to frame my horse with my thighs, and that even though I just quickly stuffed something. Of course, if you do this at home, take your time with it, stuff it calmly, ride a few times, try it out, see how the wool settles, where it goes, and then go at it again. It usually takes some time to develop the right feeling for yourself and your horse. And spoiler alert, in the training of your horse, this will also change a little from time to time. On the one hand, because your horse gains musculature, but on the other hand, because the center of gravity and posture of the horse change. When I start with a horse that is still quite front heavy, I lean further forward and follow the horse. This means I might have a bit more padding in the front here. And if the horse can hold and lift itself more in front of the chest over time, I will need to remove wool here, otherwise I will tip over backwards. This means that this pad can accompany you on your entire journey, and you can always adjust it to what suits you best. And if you ever change horses, you can simply take it with you. So, what can we say in conclusion? It is indeed very essential that whatever lies between you and your horse, whether it is a pad or a saddle, that the pad or the saddle supports you and is comfortable and supportive. Just as an aid should help the horse, the equipment should also help us ensure the best possible communication with our horse. If you have any questions about our products and how to optimally adjust the pads for you and your horse, feel free to contact me. I am very, very happy to help you. See you soon.